Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled People story. It was a scorching 95 degrees on Saturday afternoon when I decided to head to our community pool for a refreshing swim. As an avid swimmer, I try to lap swim for at least 30 minutes every day if I can. It's not only great exercise, but it helps me de-stress after a long work week. I arrived at the pool ready to dive in, wearing my favorite swimsuit, goggles, and swim cap. That's when I noticed her. Karen from the Homeowners Association board. She was patrolling the perimeter of the pool, clipboard in hand, looking for any rule violations she could call out. I tried my best to ignore her and began my usual lap swimming routine. About 10 minutes into my swim, I heard Karen's shrill voice yelling in my direction. "Hey! No lap swimming allowed when the pool is crowded!" I looked around in confusion. There were only about 5 other people in this large, Olympic-sized community pool. I wouldn't call that crowded at all. I stopped swimming and treaded water near her. "Excuse me, I don't think this pool is too crowded for lap swimming. The rules say lap swimming is allowed unless the pool is at full capacity." Karen scowled at me. "Don't question my authority. I'm the Homeowners Association board president and I say no laps when others are present." I sighed, not wanting to cause a scene. "Okay, I'll just exercise in the shallow end then." Karen smirked and walked away triumphantly. For the next 15 minutes, I attempted to do water aerobics in the shallow end while Karen paced around watching me like a hawk. Anytime I tried to do faster movements like jumping jacks, Karen would yell that I was splashing others and needed to stop. At this point, I'd had enough. I swam to the edge of the pool and pulled myself out ready to leave. As I gathered my belongings, Karen got in my face and snapped a picture with her phone camera. "I'm reporting you for failure to comply with pool safety rules," she spat angrily. "We've gotten multiple complaints about you endangering swimmers with your reckless behaviors." I was seeing red at this point. "That's ridiculous and you know it," I shouted back. "You're just on another insane power trip? I'm following all the rules and you're harassing me for no reason." Karen stepped closer and wagged her finger in my face. "How dare you raise your voice at me? I'll have you banned from this pool, you hooligan." Just then, I heard a familiar voice pipe up from behind me. "Karen, enough, leave her alone." I turned to see my next-door neighbor Anne standing there with her arms crossed. Anne was my savior on many occasions when it came to dealing with Karen's crazy antics on the Homeowners Association board. "Mind your own business, Anne," Karen snapped. "This woman was endangering lives with her outlandish swimming." Anne laughed. "Are you hearing yourself, Karen? The only person endangering anything is you with this insane vendetta against your neighbors. She's just trying to swim laps and get some exercise like anyone else." I chimed in. "Yeah, all I want to do is swim in peace. You're the only one causing issues here." Karen's face turned red with anger. "How dare you team up against me, the president of the Homeowners Association?" She was yelling so loudly that heads started turning around the pool area. Anne shook her head. "Karen, you're being unreasonable. You're on a power trip and harassing residents left and right. If you don't stop this crusade of frivolous complaints against your neighbors, we'll have no choice but to vote you out on the next Homeowners Association ballot." Karen gasped dramatically. "You can't do that. I've been president for 5 years." "Yes, we can," I said calmly. "Your behavior is detrimental to the community. It's time for you to go." Karen glared viciously at me and Anne. "Fine, but this isn't over, ladies," she hissed. "You'll regret crossing me." She turned on her heel and stomped away angrily. Anne put a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "Don't worry about her empty threats. Hopefully we can vote her out sooner rather than later. In the meantime, let's enjoy the pool in peace." I gave Anne a grateful hug. "Thank you so much for having my back. I never would have survived Karen's reign of terror without your help." Anne waved it off. "Don't mention it. What are neighbors for?" She winked at me. "Now let's relax and not let Karen ruin our pool day." I wholeheartedly agreed. And for the rest of that afternoon, Anne and I swam leisurely and reminisced about Karen's most ridiculous Homeowners Association infractions. By the time we left, my stress from the day's events had completely melted away, thanks to Anne's friendship and refusal to tolerate Karen's crazy abuses of power. The next week, Anne and I rallied our fellow fed-up neighbors and held an emergency Homeowners Association meeting. There, we outlined all the reasons Karen was unfit to be on the board. let alone president. And by the end, we had more than the 2/3 majority we needed to immediately vote her out and elect saner homeowners association leadership. Karen fought us to the bitter end, but she didn't stand a chance against our united front. With her gone, the community atmosphere changed overnight. People could finally relax by the pool again without fear of retribution from the power-hungry homeowners association president. Anne and I toasted our sweet success with celebratory cocktails by the pool later that week. And for the first time all summer, I enjoyed swimming leisurely laps without getting harassed in the process. The next one is a pro-revenge story. I was approaching 40, and I had learned a lot of lessons in over 10 years of legal practice. However, one of the most important lessons I learned was from an older lawyer I worked for as a summer intern after my second year of law school. A lawyer has 3 duties, he told me. First to himself, second to the court, and lastly, the client. Always make sure you come first and the client comes last. The reason? Because clients will deceive you, he said. They'll betray you without thinking twice. I should have stuck with this lawyer, but being young and foolish, I decided to work downtown. I'm still downtown now, but fortunately I remembered this lesson, and it proved handy many years later when a client truly attempted to betray me. My client was a mid-sized company involved in various businesses and owning properties here and there. It wasn't large enough to be publicly listed, but it did possess a substantial real estate portfolio. One day, a building they owned burned to the ground. The company wanted to claim insurance, so they assigned the task to Frank, a seasoned salaryman. Frank was nearing 60 and believed he knew what he was doing. He insisted he didn't need my help with the insurance claim. He had it all under control. After all, lawyers were costly. Some people took pride in avoiding legal fees, and Frank was one of those individuals who relished every penny saved by not paying lawyers. I dealt with Frank frequently, and he always tried to cut corners. The insurer is going to deceive you, I warned Frank. It was only by chance that I even learned about the fire and the loss, because Frank never sought my assistance. He simply let it slip one day. Since then, I had been monitoring him, attempting to make him see reason. I had to struggle to get him to send me the proof of loss form to ensure he hadn't mishandled it. Frank made plenty of mistakes, and I sometimes wondered how he managed to keep his job. Fortunately, the proof of loss was in order at least, so that was one less concern. You can't be sure of that, he replied, clearly wanting to end the conversation. I'm paid to recognize when insurers are trying to deceive my clients, I said, and the insurer is going to deceive you. They've been stalling you with requests, questions, and paperwork for a long time, but they won't pay you unless you take legal action against them. Frank insisted he knew what he was doing, that everything was under control, and he had a great rapport with the adjuster. The limitation period expires in 2 weeks, I cautioned, and once that deadline passes, it'll be too late to file a lawsuit. The moment that limitation period lapses, they'll stop taking your calls. You'll receive a final email saying, "Sorry, you're out of time," and that will be the end of it. Don't leave this to the last minute. Let me initiate a lawsuit now, and you'll have your money in no time. Frank responded with a nonchalant, "Sure, fine, whatever, don't bother me. I've got this." And he quickly ended the call. I sent him the standard email with clear warnings and recommendations, which he disregarded. I sent the email again and again as the limitation period neared, and once more a couple of days before the deadline. "I'll be in court and you won't be able to reach me," my final email stated, "but you must file a lawsuit. You have other law firms on your list, so select one and initiate the legal action." He didn't bother replying, and I went on to attend my trial. The trial lasted for a couple of weeks and still no email from Frank. Another month went by, and then another, and still no email. I assumed he must have resolved the issue. Maybe Frank was correct after all, I thought to myself, and then my phone rang. It was Frank. "Do you recall that fire insurance matter we discussed?" We had discussed it at least a dozen times. I assumed he was calling to gloat, so I got straight to the point. "So they paid out. That's great, Frank. You were right." He inquired about what I was referring to and whether he could see a copy of the claim. "What claim?" I asked. "The claim against the insurer. You know, that claim." "Does that mean the insurer didn't pay?" I questioned. He hung up on me, and a few minutes later my computer alerted me to Frank's email, in which he mentioned our conversation and asked for a copy of the claim. I promptly replied, "I assume the insurer didn't pay you, just as I warned they wouldn't. Now that the limitation period has expired, they've likely told you to fend for yourself, leaving you with a multi-million-dollar loss. Is that correct?" I had made a mistake by not escalating the issue when Frank refused to listen to me. But if I had done so, I would have likely never received another case from him. However, that was then, and this was now. So I CC'd Frank's supervisor and the supervisor's supervisor, as well as Bill, the client's in-house counsel. Bill acknowledged my email immediately and called me later that day. "Frank messed up," he admitted. "We understand that. He's incompetent. So what's our next move?" "So his excuses didn't hold up?" I inquired. "Nope." Bill explained that they had called Frank into a meeting, but his story didn't align with all the warnings I had sent him. Moreover, there would have been no reason for him to continue communicating with the insurer if he had instructed me to file a lawsuit, as his role would have ended when the case was referred to legal counsel. The company was aware that Frank was not being truthful. "So is this the end of the road?" Bill asked. "Have we just lost millions?" "It's all right," I reassured him, explaining that when I realized Frank was going to mishandle the situation, I had initiated a lawsuit against the insurer. Since Frank had sent me the proof of loss some time ago, I had enough information to file a lawsuit to preserve the cause of action. It wasn't a perfect claim and lacked details, but it was sufficient. "You filed without instructions?" Bill inquired. Lawyers aren't supposed to file lawsuits without instructions, as doing so would make them personally liable for any costs the opposing party incurs. It's a significant step to file without instructions. "Yes," I confirmed. I filed without instructions. While we spoke, I retrieved a copy of the lawsuit and emailed it to him. "It's a bit rough," I admitted, "but we can always amend it." "Thank goodness!" Bill exclaimed. "Can I leave it in your hands?" Of course he could. The insurer was an easy target, and I knew I could recover from them without any trouble. A few days later, I received a call from another individual within the client's organization, someone I didn't typically interact with. They were facing a dilemma and needed my assistance. "I usually work with Frank," I mentioned. "What's going on?" What was happening was that Frank had been called into another meeting. They handed him a one-page letter and he packed up his belongings in a box. Security then escorted him past his colleagues to the elevator and down to the parking lot. Farewell, Frank. He was too old to secure another job, or at least not a decent one. It was a life-altering event for Frank, but for me, he became merely an anecdote, a cautionary tale that I share with young lawyers over a few drinks, perhaps too frequently, as I've grown older and have accumulated my favorite stories. I didn't seek revenge on Frank, not at all, and I might have felt a bit sorry for him if he hadn't attempted to betray me. Nevertheless, the person who took his place was excellent and never haggled over fees, so everything turned out well. The next one is a petty revenge story. Years ago, I worked for a large retail chain under your typical promoted because he's one of the boys manager. He didn't do much that actually needed doing in our department, and even foisted things like employee reviews, product resets and counts, etc. off on me. He mostly hung out shooting the crap with his buddies and chatting with customers, although he didn't sell much because he always tried to push everyone towards the highest end product even if a more moderate one would suit the customers better. The company rewarded him with prizes like trips and gadgets for our high sales. Sales that I largely made with a team I trained. And then he would brag about all the cool stuff he got. I didn't like him much. One thing he loved talking about constantly was his baby, maybe 9 months old. He even made a picture of the little tyke, the wallpaper on our display computer. I get being a proud papa, but on top of me already being annoyed with him for being a crappy boss, his baby was weird looking. Nothing was wrong with the baby health-wise, but it was bug-eyed and big-headed like its daddy. This was especially highlighted because babies are already naturally a little like that, and this kid was like if Megamind ducked a pug, and I had to look at a picture of it all day, and all the customers saw it. So I went into a photo editing software and increased the size of the kid's eyes by about another 10%. Not enough for daddy to notice, but enough that it was startling if you were seeing the picture for the first time. Uncanny Valley vibes. People would subtly react when Bossman showed them the picture and talk about the kid, like they wanted to say something but absolutely knew they should not. It was small, it was petty, and I still giggle about it years later. Hopefully the kid grew up to look like mama. The next one is a malicious compliance story. This is a burner account because my real account gives away where I'm from and who I am, and if anybody I know sees this post, I will be easily recognizable. So this started some time back. I got fired from my job due to an injury and had to be hospitalized for a significant time. In my contract, it stated that if I had more than XXX amount of sick days in a 12-month period, I could get my contract terminated with 1 month's notice. So that happened, and of course I contacted my union. They told me it was a legal termination, but they asked about a specific part of my contract, which was about my commission. Turns out I've missed out on some special commission during my employment, and totally missed it when I read my contract when I got employed. Can't really get closer to which kind of commission due to my anonymity. My union advised me to contact the boss, show him the part of my contract and proof of the missing commission, and try to get a settlement. I was looking for what is equivalent to 3,000 euros. I went to see my boss and started with a nice chat. After about 10 minutes, I brought up the issue and showed him my contract and showed him that I've never gotten the commission stated in the contract. My boss told me straight up to contact his lawyers and that we were done talking and told me to leave. Cue malicious compliance. I went home, looked at every paycheck through, and set up a meeting with a lawyer. We found a lot of small mistakes on my paychecks and summed it all up. We sent an official letter to his lawyers and got an answer from them a few days later. Now he was willing to settle for the first amount equivalent to 3,000 euros. I smiled and laughed. No can do, Mr. Boss Man. Not anymore. Now I want the full amount, which is equivalent to 10,000 euros, plus pension, plus 15% in damages, plus all the legal fees. And I have proof of everything to back up my claim. Due date of the court. And guess what? He lost big time. I've now planned a nice vacation and still have more money than I asked for in the first place. The next one is an entitled people story. 2 months ago, a neighbor tried to forcefully enter my home through the door. Fortunately, I had chain bolts installed on the inside so he couldn't open it, but he managed to wedge his arm and leg in. It escalated into a screaming match that woke up the neighbors. As he became more aggressive in pushing the door despite the chains, I waved a pen at him to scare him off, but he grabbed my hand, resulting in me stabbing his palm. He backed off in pain and retreated to his actual house, which was right beside mine. His mother started screaming at me for stabbing her son and went back inside with curses while tending to her wounded son. What really bothered me was that the other neighbors started giving me disapproving looks and faces. For 2 weeks I endured their glances, murmurs, stares, and even my own assumptions about what they were saying behind my back. I decided to move out. It was tough because it hadn't even been a year since I bought the house, and now I was leaving. Since it was small, it was hard to hide anything from the neighbors who went out of their way to snoop from the windows. Regardless, I managed to pack my essential stuff and had my brother help me leave the house. Even as I hurriedly put my bags into his truck in the dead of night, it seemed like everyone in the neighborhood woke up and just quietly watched me leave. All the lights in their houses turned on, and they opened their windows just staring. My brother got creeped out as well, and we started to move faster. As we were about to finish, the son who got stabbed looked smug as he called out insults like, "You think you're so pretty that I'll assault you," and other offensive remarks. His mother just shouted, "Pahawa demonio!" Leave, demon. It's been 3 days since I moved back, and I've been plagued by nightmares. I imagine hearing other people's thoughts silently judging me brutally, and I've been scared to leave the guest room of my brother's house. I am probably posting this for sympathy or whatever, but I just need to hear or maybe read something that contradicts my own thoughts for once. I am going insane with how fast it's progressing, and I'm beginning to doubt the sincerity of my own brother, as he might see me as a burden to him and his family of 3. I'm planning to go back to my parents in the countryside, but I don't have a date yet for when I'll move out. The next one is an entitled parent story, so a bit of context: I recently accepted myself as gender fluid. Haven't come out to basically anyone yet, except maybe for my best friend, a small part of my family, and well, you guys right now. Or so I wanted. I'll explain what happened. A few months ago, my grandma, who is on a walker and cannot move too much on her own, asked us to visit. By that moment, we had just reached 1 million COVID cases here, so mostly all of us rejected. Besides, I live a bus ride from her. Bus ride with people who don't seem to know about public distancing. and I also live with my mom, who is a risk patient as well. I didn't want to put any of them at risk. So a few days ago, we went finally to visit since the cases were going down. Although I insisted on wearing my mask at all times, tried to approach people as less as possible and do not touch other people's stuff. And met with my cousins again. So I was on a phone call with my best friend, and I told her I was a bit uncomfortable with what I was wearing because of some comments one of my conservative aunt was making. She's always been kinda conservative, like whenever I talked about my plans for adulthood, she said, "For your 30s, with a husband and a family, I hope." Since it was kinda chilly, I was wearing my favorite hoodie and some jeans, not those that are tight, but those that are loose on all parts. Plus I was wearing a black wool cap that made my hair seem shorter since it pulled it up. I did look a bit more boyish. Well, not exactly like that. I wanted to seem a bit of both, but, well, felt like looking more like a boy that day. But I still was looking normal, yet she'd always say, "You always had such a nice body, such a shame you decide to act like a boy and not like the nice girl you are." I told my friend on the phone, I wonder if one day she'll understand I'm no longer a girl. Turns out my youngest cousin, who is 6, heard me. He was looking for me since he thought I was playing hide and seek, because I left the room where we were watching TV. I end my call and walk back inside only to find myself in front of, "How dare you confuse my child with your complex of attention-seeking?" I was like, "What? You said you were no longer a girl, what are you then? A traba?" Quick note, trabas are a way to call trans people here. I don't fully know if it's offensive or not, though. I don't find it offensive since mostly all people I know of my age only say it ironically. Like to talk about Fleur de la Vie, but still respect her later on. Well, not exactly. I always knew you were a bad influence to my kids, you'll give them the gay. Now, my uncle was trying to calm her down. All her yelling must have been heard from the streets. He failed. So no way to reason with her. I just walked away and texted my other aunt, who I live with, to pick me up and take me home. Haven't spoken to anybody else on that side of the family yet. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.